Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I'm the Series Strategy Game and we are starting a new series of Hearts of Iron 4 with the Kaiserreich mod. So last time we did play a little bit around with India and I thought we'd try something different this time. I thought a little bit about something maybe in East Asia, but you know what? I think we should be going for something a little bit more challenging and a little bit more in the midst of it. So we are going to go for Britain here. And the history of Britain is quite interesting because ultimately, in this alternative history, where we're going to start right over here, we are going to see a Union of Great Britain that is very, very different to the usual Let's Play. So let's have a look over here. I'm going to go a little bit through the strategy and what we really want to get out of this series now. In this episode, talk a little bit about, the background, my motivation for playing this, and a little bit how we want to roleplay this. And the actual game start is probably going to be in the next episode. So we're going to set up everything and talk about this now, and then you'll be able to see the link about now that should bring you to the next video, which I'm going to upload immediately. Right, so why Britain? Britain is uniquely weak in this scenario because it has lost all of its colonies. It's only the island of Great Britain. There's no Canada, well, no allied Canada, and no South Africa isn't allied anymore. All of the colonies are gone. India is gone. Egypt is gone. Everything is gone. It's only this little island over here. Even Northern Ireland is not part of the United Kingdom anymore, so that is very, very bad. Said United Kingdom, that was the first mistake. We are of course here the Union of Britain, and that is a communist country. It's after the Weltkrieg, so after the First World War, which Germany won, of course, in this alternative scenario against France. Britain peaced out about 2 years later. They were a little bit unstable, but most importantly, shortly afterwards, as we're going to see, I think, in the scripture or in the law of this mod, well, Great Britain basically succumbed to syndicalism, which is a mild form of communism, you might call it. And it's basically the trade unions that are reigning in a sort of Congress power. We are right now playing Philip Snowden over here, and this gentleman here is going to step down very soon. So that leaves the future of Great Britain very open. Is it going to go full communist? Is it going to be diluted into Scotland, Wales and all of that? A very decentralized semi-republic even, or is it going to go somewhere in the middle, let's say socialist type of government? Of course we are going to go full communism here, and that will be quite interesting. So I found this quite interesting because it will allow us to play a little bit more of a mixed thing really, where we'll be well, not mixed thing, where we have these different ideas that are going on at the same time. And you have this Britain that is a loser of the First World War, so it's like Germany was historically, very bitter about, of course, the past, about being humble like that, about losing its prestigious situation. You must imagine, in this alternative world, Britain really didn't give up its colonies so much as they broke away and even become part of a sort of hostile environment. So it's not this gradual shift down that it would have after the Second World War, but it's basically going from full domination of the world for well, the better part of 150 years or so, right until pretty much rock bottom and being completely isolated. So we've got a very bitter loser over here about all the empire that is gone. At the same time, you have this upstart revolutionary idea of Great Britain being really driven by the leftist leftist people of the area, who were, of course, very much in an upstart period. As we know historically, they did win in Russia, and they did mobilize masses. They didn't have the negative example of communism to live from. It was an idea that was barely born, let's say, 50 years ago, also in the middle of the 19th century, and it's now really getting momentum. You have this really big idea. It's starting to blossom in a couple of nations. France, of course, in this alternative scenario. Parts of India. Can we actually see that? I don't think we can where it's all present. Diplomacy? It's not quite diplomacy, no. These guys are just sort of allied factions. No, that doesn't really tell the truth either. So, yeah. Well, basically we've got communism or syndicalism in a lot of places. So, yeah. In that sense, Great Britain is very, very, boosting with this sort of timid power. As maybe a little bit the Nazis were in Nazi Germany. And we think about how we could project that. How are we going to live in a world this dangerous? And in that sense, they might even be a little bit like Soviet Russia in its very early years, in that they're feeling very insecure. There are definitely nations that are going to threaten it, specifically the Dominion of Canada and all of the Entente powers with the old monarch of George V, which of course we kicked out. But also Australasia, well, the French Republic that is still present in the North African theatre, even Russia, and certainly to some extent even Germany is a very difficult beast for us to handle, because Germany has this... It's still the Kaiser, of course, that is around. He's a very old man now, but of course Germany never lost the war. They'll probably be a little bit further behind. They're a little bit fat. They are not that... they haven't had the experience of losing so much. So maybe they are a little bit timid, but they are certainly very much an industrial powerhouse to reckon with. So maybe a little bit like Britain was historically in the Second World War, or at the dawn of the Second World War. We very much have different problems. Our most predominant problem is that we have zero manpower, but we do have a fairly good industrial base. So a little bit the flip side of our playthrough with the Indians, which was it's a nice change, I believe. So yeah. This is basically who we'll be playing as. Let's have a look at our nation over here. We've got the militia, national spirit, which does give us a horrible debuff on divisional organization. Other than that, it's kind of okay. Does have some nice things, mostly recruitable population factor. That's nice. 2% is not bad. Although I'm not exactly sure where we would see that. I only see the 1.5% of volunteer only, so I'm not really sure whether that does work out correctly. And do the numbers match up? They do. So I'm not sure this actually does give us anything. So yeah, not that great. Also export focus, volunteer only, civilian economy. It's a very bad state that this country is in. In terms of the army, we have a whole of 18 divisions, only 7 of which are doing anything. These are these infantry divisions. Other than that, it's mostly home guard militias over here. Yeah, very horrible unit, but yeah, that's what we've got, so that's what we need to deal with. Right, that's pretty much it for the army. We do have a couple of planes, not really that much to write home about. We have got a fairly large navy, actually, including... Can we see that over here? I think we can. Including a carrier, a couple of heavy carriers, and this tells you that the ships in this little mod over here in the Kaiserreich mod are very different. We've got fast battleship and dreadnoughts. That's a little bit of a duplication, I think. A couple of cruisers, destroyers, and submarines. A lot of submarines, actually. 100 of those. And they're in a single fleet over here, with a lot of them being somewhat of an old type, I would say. So not really sure whether we're going to keep them around. I mean, they're not bad, but they do eat up manpower, and manpower is not something that we have ample of. That's basically the state of our army. There's not that much to write home about. But what are we going to do with that? So what I want to do with this scenario is two things. Firstly, I want to roleplay a little bit this Great Britain that is so engulfed between this loss of its empire and maybe trying to regain that in the name of syndicalism, communism, so being very radical. And I think the actual goal that we want to measure ourselves is regaining the empire under a communist flag. And that means recapturing our lost territories, most importantly the holdouts that are still being owned by the old monarchy, so Canada, certainly India. We do want to unite under communism. If the Bharatarian Commune does unite that, we might be saying that that is okay if they are allied to us. Certainly Australian Federation, South Africa, and if I really want to go for it, the United States of America. Of course, a very old colony of Great Britain, but in this scenario it might just be playable. On the other hand, we also have to deal with the German Empire, with the Federalists over here, or even, how are they called? Authoritarian Democrats. So these guys definitely are our most important enemy. Germany for now, Russia usually collapses, I feel, but that will be our main enemies, and we'll see if we can get the United States and Canada to get back into our fold, and that would be my actual goal. And that's going to be a very tough goal because we have the full of 7 divisions and not that much manpower to recruit more. So we'll have to see about that. Right. And you know what? Other than that, I think we'll do some prep work over here. So if you do want to get into the real action, do go ahead to the next section. We're going to set up a couple of things over here in regards to our national focus and talk a little bit about what we are going to do over here. So firstly, the first route that you do have to take is this 1936 Congress of the Trade Unions. So the trade unions that do make up power, or that are the root cause of power right now, do meet. It's going to last 140 days, which is really long. And during that time, you really decide on which path you're going to go. Is it going to be devolution ultimately, so a very distinct form of government where Wales and Scotland basically split off? Is it going to ever be evolution, sort of the social democrat path, or is it going to be revolution, the communist path? And this is what we're going to take, of course. And then we have a couple of other things, including these things over here, so we can decide on the level of industry. If we go communist, we basically can only go the right branch of this, so central industry. That includes these things, all very useful. It's basically what you expect: more military factories, more civilian factories, a little bit of infrastructure, not that important. And of course, these here are fairly good actually. Production, military construction speed, it's nice, yeah. Production efficiency cap is good, but really great is factory output plus 10%. That would be really great. Also another research slot, obviously very welcome, but we need to do a lot of things before that. We can modernize our army. Again, we're probably going to go for the People's Officer Corps, so that we are going to go this right branch. There are a good couple of things over here, including remove national spirit of the militias. That is going to be extremely useful. The downside of this is that all of this does cost an enormous amount of political power, so we'll have to see how we can deal with that. Couple of naval options, nice, but I think for now it's not something that we really can really focus on at this very moment. Air Force, similar thing, and then we have foreign policy over here, and most importantly the Britain within the international, so that we can define our international scope, and some important let's say foreign adventures that we can do over here, and so on and so forth, including the liberation of Canada, where we will be ultimately getting the war declaration goal against them, and I think that will be very welcome. Right, for now there's only one thing that we can start with, that's the Trade Congress over here, so we are going to start with that. We can, I think, directly jump into our research, and it's going to be a fairly normal start over here. We can choose production. That would be nice. I think construction is also a viable pick. Engineering, we're of course going to go for mechanical computing, even though it's going to take enormous amounts of time. 4% more research time is very welcome. And I think these are the, the things that typically most people do choose right away. Our fourth research slot I don't think is quite as important. We've got nothing over here that is immediately beneficial to us. Radio, of course, is a must-have in the midterm. But other than that, it's not really a requirement. So I'm not going to go for that for now. We do have a couple of things that we can certainly research, like these tanks. I'm tempted to go for the fighters over here, which are of course 1936 technology, so we can go for that. And as long as we are producing, let's say, 2 old fighters, we definitely have a problem there. So it would be good to modernize that. Of course, the flip side of that is that we do have an aircraft manufacturer, Supermarine Spitfire over here, which would give us a lot more agility, range, air attack. That would be great. But you know what? I don't think we'll have the political power for that for now. So in fact, we might just want to research the 1936 model like that, and once we get to 1940, we'll probably have the ability to produce something more. So that's great. Civilian factories, of course, I am gonna go ahead and build military factories, because ultimately, well, you know what we can do. I think one civilian factory down here in London, and then other than that, we are going to build military factories in these high infrastructure environments that we do have over here. That's not actually the highest infrastructure. This is a little bit higher, so that's nice. Yeah, and we're going to keep it at that. It's going to take a while to churn through all of this anyway. So yeah, that's nice. Militarily, what we're going to do is, of course, we're going to take all of our Home Guard units over here. Can I not pick all of them at the same time? I cannot, okay. Simply form a new unit over here. all of these guys over here, Home Guard, they are of course simply gonna yeah, do exactly that. They're gonna guard our home island over here, and specifically because you'll not be able to do everything at the same time. I think you can get Scupper as well. Of course you're going to only guard naval bases. These are the most important contact points. And then we have the first army over here, which we're going to form as part of an army group. The army group commander is the only one that we have got. That's Field Marshal Bill Alexander, who is a very great guy. War hero, that's okay. But more importantly, brilliant strategist. He's decent stats. Career officer, promotion cost, we're not going to promote him. But reconnaissance is nice. Defensive doctrine, that's nice. And he does have the ability to level up over here, and that is very, very nice as well. We're going to pick aggressive... no, we can not for now, but that's fine. It's going to happen at a later point. And then the first army over here, we are, I think, going to pick potentially this guy over here. He's a panzer leader, but also an infantry officer. So yeah, we are going to pick him, and that's going to be alright. And then the second army, and the one that is currently defending, I think what we can do is use this hill fighter guy over here. He has decent defensive stats. And this guy over here will probably be in a more offensive role in the future. Maybe we could put you into this group. Let's go for the Navy. With the submarines, I think all of these guys over here are going to be in a new task force. So everything that is basically a level 1 submarine is going to be picked and put into new task force. I think that leaves 45 more modern submarines. That's great. Let's deselect them. All of these guys are not 45, so that's fine, and we're gonna delete these task force, get a little bit of manpower back, and just have generally better units around, and that I think is great. And these guys are gonna go on naval exercises down here in the channel, giving us a little bit of naval experience, and that should be fine. Other than that, we do have a couple of different fleets. I think I'm gonna just combine them for now. So that we can play around with that a little bit. I'm probably going to do that in between episodes just so we have some decent task force. Not that used to the factors here, but I think we'll be fine. Good. And in terms of aircraft, what we're also going to do is we're going to pick these fighters over here. And we are going to ask them to train over England, which I think is going to be a nice choice. You know what, these tactical bombers I think can do this. Do you want? No, let's keep it as is. And let's get you up to a 400 limit, which is going to be fine. Good. Free dockyards. We are building a lot of things, mostly submarines and all of that. I think what we're going to do is we're going to assign the free dockyards here to these improved heavy carriers, so that everything just sort of goes into building that, and that is fine. I think we are building infantry equipment. We could potentially wait for something a little bit better. We are building some stout artillery. All of that is good. The interwar fighters, you know what, I'm not sure whether we really want to keep you around. Probably you're going to be lost to training anyway. Naval bombers and interwar bombers I'm going to keep in the loop. Light tanks over here, yeah, we're going to keep that as well. But what I would also like to build a couple of motorized units over here. And we're going to assign pretty much everything that we do get into this. And you know what, the interwar fighters we're going to skip for now. It does leave us a little bit short of chromium, so let's ask, I don't know, Cuba, why not, to deliver a little bit of that, and aluminium. We are not going to ask the Dutch East Indies. I think they are very much not communist. Why not Brazil? I think that's okay. Good, so that should settle that. No divisions in basic training. I think if we train at least 2 of these guys, that would be fine. We've got a couple of division templates over here. We're going to delete this one. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to train up a couple of more artillery guys over here, at least till we get a full set of units. So yeah, I think like that is okay. Well, maybe we can do... So how many do we need? We need basically 18, right? So let's do 6. Let's train another group of 6, and we're going to ask for 2 of these and just 1 of these, and that I think should be fine. So that we've got all of that settled, and that should be dandy. We're going to edit this, of course, here to be low priority, so that all of the new equipment goes basically to these divisions here, and I think that's going to be alright. Of course, that means we have very much a big gap in the stuff that we need, and that's going to take a couple of years probably to even manufacture. Well, not years, but at least a month. So that should be fine. Good. I think that about settles it where we are, where we need to be. We are building support equipment even though we don't need to. Yeah, we'll be using it at some point, so I think that's going to be fine. In terms of decisions, some of these are interesting. I think for now we don't need any of that. Probably the most important decisions are going to come out of this 1936 Congress of the Trade Unions. So I'm just going to pick it up over here because I think there will be a pop-up over the history of the UK, and I'm going to leave you with that and just go directly to recording the next episode so that we can actually start the game. I think let's go for a little bit more speed because I do want to see the pop-up. There we go, the New Britain. After the defeat of France, the United Kingdom's war with Germany dragged on inconclusively for 2 years. In 1921, the stalemate was finally broken when Lloyd George agreed to the German proposal of a peace with honour. Yeah. While Britain overseas territories remained largely intact, the faith of the people did not. In 1925, disaster struck. A minor labour dispute in the coalfields of South Wales quickly escalated, and after 6 weeks of rioting, looting and pamphleteering, most of the establishment, including the royal family, fled to Canada. A provisional government of revolutionary groups dissolved what little was left of Parliament and declared a Union of Britain. 11 years later, the Trade Union Congress still forms the centerpiece of politics of the Federated and Democratic Union. The British people are secure on their island, content to build socialism in isolation, protected by the strong Republican Air Force and Navy, and with each country protected by its own popular militia, who act both as a reserve military and the new police. Yet, with the world seemingly ready to erupt into chaos, many are starting to wonder if Britain has a duty to spread the revolution to her former colonial territories. After all, the monarchists in Canada cannot be allowed to plot against the Union indefinitely. Fascinating indeed, ladies and gentlemen, and I am going to leave you with this, and going to see you in the next episode. Do leave a like and all of that if you enjoy, or if you are excited about this series. I certainly am, and I do look forward to your comments, likes, and subscriptions, of course, but most importantly, for this series. Goodbye.